Okay guys, for this particular second project we're working on, I'm going to do what's called gutting the paracord. And when I'm doing whipping projects, I really like using the outer shell of the paracord. And when we gut it, all we're doing is taking those strands, see the inner strands of the paracord? We're taking those and we're just taking them out. We're gutting it. Okay? So there's our strands, and there we go. And I'm gonna save these because these inner strands are very, very useful for other tasks as well. So we're gonna hold on to the inner part. But for our purposes right now, we have this right here, which is just the shell, the outer shell. And just to help us out, let's burn off the frayed lines that we cut it out on. Give us something easier to work with here. Okay, now that we have our gutted paracord, guys, this piece right here, I'm going to take my ridge line, and I've shown this in another couple of videos, but this is the ridge line, the 25-foot braided ridge line that I was working on. And we're pretty much at the completion stage now. I just got to whip up the ends here. So here's the end. Here's the completed braiding right there, you might be able to see. So what I'm going to do is go down a little bit, let's say right about here. And we're going to do the same premise that we just did with the cold steel shovel. I'm going to form a loop here on the end. Okay, there's our loop right here. So this ridge line is now acting like the handle did of the cold steel shovel. So being that that is essentially the handle, make our loop a little smaller there. We're now going to do the same thing with this wrapping. We're going to wrap up onto the loop the same way we did with the shovel. Okay, so there's our loop. And here's our wrapping. Keeping it tight. Making sure it's even along the way. Okay, and then we're to the end, so the exact same thing. We're going to put this tag end through the loop. And then we're going to take our other end and simply pull it until we pull the loop into the wrapping. There we go. Just takes a little working with it first, guys, but once you can get a good grip and pull, you pull that knot down into it, and there we go. So I don't know if you can see that really well with the black, but there's our whipping, and we're going to do the exact same thing on this. Grab our Swiss Army Tinker here, which is on me at all times, by the way, guys. I love this. Love this Swiss Army tinker. I'm going to take off this end. So there's one loose end. We're going to take off this other loose end. And right now we're just going to burn that. And we're going to actually want to melt that right into this other paracord here. Let's see if we can beat the wind here. So we have that side melted in. That side's melted in. And then what I like to do, just this whipping part, I like to take a lighter to it just to make sure it's all melted in on each other. So it kind of solidifies itself on there. And then, now that we have that pretty much where we want it, the next thing I do is I'm going to take these loose strands off. So there's one end. Okay guys, so on this braided paracord ridgeline, there's going to be two main weak points. One is going to be the very end, where our braiding stops, where we just whipped it together. The other part is, you might remember when I was showing how I make this, we braided an eye or a loop into the other end. And that entailed braiding it up here and then braiding it into the ridge line. And then this part right here, you might be able to see the burned ends. That's where the loop part stops. And then we go back into the regular ridgeline braiding. This is the other weak point, I think, right there. So what we're going to do is whip this area just like we whipped the end. So the excess that was left from the triple braiding, I think you call it, I just burned those in. And now we're going to whip this part just like we did on the end and just like we did on the handle of the cold steel shovel. So we're going to make our loop. A loop right there, guys. And we're just going to wrap it around. the exact same way. What I mainly want to do is get these strands covered and solidified. Okay, so there's what we have left. This is where I'm going to put my end that I've been whipping through that hole. And just pull down on this end so we can pull that through. Hope you can see that okay. Let's get rid of this excess end here. And melt it in. In case you guys are thinking that this is difficult to light or something, it's not. It's just much easier to do when there's not a lot of wind. And all I'm doing here is I'm just melting that whipping into the rest of the ridgeline. So there we go. There is the whipping on this part. And here is the whipping on the other end. So I hope you guys were able to see all that today. Okay guys, so here we go. There's the whipped end of our ridgeline. There's the whipped part of the end of our eye that's braided in. And there's our whipped handle on the cold steel shovel. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I hope it turned out okay for you and you were able to make out what I was doing. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I thank you guys very much and we'll talk to you again down the road. Bye-bye.